This girl's name is Mai Chengwan. She is a gentle and charming girl from Shanghai, now 29 years old. Her mother, Lu Wanyu, and her father, Mai Leishan, are both working class. She has lived in a small lane in Sanheli since childhood. It's nearly 10:30 and Chengwan hasn't come home yet. Chengwan has been dating Xin Zhao for 3 years, but she feels the timing isn't right and hasn't introduced him to her parents yet. When Zhao Liang drives Chengwan home, he kisses her, only to be caught by her mother. The mother scolds Chengwan harshly and yells at Zhao Liang. Chengwan turns to her father for help, who pretends to have twisted his ankle to divert Wanyu's attention, allowing Zhao Liang to drive away. The mom pries into Chengwan and Zhao Liang's relationship, urging her to arrange a meeting between both families and finalize the marriage. Chengwan makes various excuses, but the mom is dissatisfied with Zhao Liang and suggests that Chengwan find someone else. That night, Chengwan makes 2 desserts, one for her mom and the other for her lover. The next morning, she brings the desserts to work. Her colleague, Wu Yu, calls to ask her to buy a watermelon on her way. Chengwan obliges and hurries to the office, balancing the desserts in one hand and the watermelon in the other as she enters the elevator. Just as she steps in, she receives a call from her mom, who still hasn't let go of the incident from the night before and persistently questions whether she and Zhao Liang have had a physical relationship. The loud conversation draws the attention of her colleagues, making Chengwan blush with embarrassment. When the elevator reaches the floor, the man exits with a cup of coffee, but Chengwan accidentally spills it. She quickly apologizes, but the man says nothing and leaves. After handing the desserts and watermelon to her colleague, Chengwan chases after the man and uses a stain remover pen to clean the coffee off his shirt. The man offers her a few hundred yuan as a tip, but she politely refuses and welcomes him to the hotel. Zhao Liang lives alone, and his mother frequently visits to bring him things. Seeing how well he is cared for, she attributes it all to the diligent and caring Chengwan, who keeps Zhao Liang's life in perfect order. However, his mother looks down on Chengwan, who grew up in a small lane, mistakenly believing she's only interested in their family's wealth. Zhao Liang wanted to explain his family situation to Chengwan when they started dating. Still, his mother strongly opposed it, so to this day, Chengwan is unaware that Zhao Liang is the son of a wealthy family. To welcome the new director, Yao Jiming, Wu Yu asks Lily to prepare a fruit platter and cake. However, Lily forgets to order the cake. Wu Yu suggests using the cake Chengwan made for Zhao Liang. Suddenly, the mom calls Chengwan, and she steps out to take the call. When she returns to the meeting room, she sees that Wu Yu has opened her cake and placed it on the table. Jiming is the new operations director. He is the man from the elevator. Without hearing an explanation, he immediately fires Chengwan. Lily tries explaining that she had put the cake away, but Wu Yu took it out again. And Wu Yu adds sarcastic comments. Chengwan, knowing that Wu Yu is deliberately targeting her, insists on taking her to explain the situation to Jiming. Chengwan seeks out Jiming to plead her case, unwilling to give up after working hard at the hotel for 7 years. Department manager Zhu Zheng also speaks on her behalf, but he refuses to relent. Today is the 3rd anniversary of Chengwan and Zhao Liang's relationship. After work, he picks her up, does his best to cheer her up, and then takes her out to celebrate. Meanwhile, Zhang hosts a banquet to welcome Jiming. The two are old acquaintances, and Zhang deliberately makes things difficult for Jiming in public, not wanting anyone to know about their relationship. Zhang asks Jiming to help push Dennis out of the company, promising to recommend Yao Jiming to the headquarters. They agree, and Jiming secretly investigates Dennis, deciding to start with Deshan Home Furnishings. Vice President Zhang arranges for her most trusted driver, Mai Leishan, to pick up and drop off Jiming. The next day, Chengwan follows Jiming to a convenience store, pleading with him to give her another chance. He is surprised to learn that she is Zhao Liang's girlfriend, the son of the CEO of Deshan Home Furnishings and the daughter of his driver. Jiming receives a call from his assistant, informing him that he needs to be in Songjiang within an hour. It's rush hour, so Chengwan volunteers to take him on a 40-minute subway ride, followed by a 10-minute shared bike ride. They arrive in Songjiang 15 minutes early, and he agrees to give her another chance, asking her to meet a client the next day. She stays up late researching Deshan Home Furnishings, where Zhao Liang works. Shin's father takes him to meet Jiming, but Jiming deliberately avoids them, leaving Chengwan to entertain them. He worried about being recognized by Chengwan, so he covers himself tightly, but she still recognizes him. She is shocked to discover that Zhao Liang is the son of the CEO of Deshan Home Furnishings. Zhao Liang had to admit that he and Chengwan were in a relationship. Shin mistakenly thought Jiming knew about this in advance, so he deliberately arranged for her to receive them. She repeatedly explained that Jiming had no idea about her relationship with Zhao Liang, but he didn't believe it and left in anger. Zhao Liang called Chengwan aside and kept apologizing to her. He lied to her for 3 years, claiming he was a designer who had moved to Shanghai and his parents were farmers in their hometown. She didn't expect that he was a rich second generation. Zhao Liang admitted that he had concealed his family affairs at the beginning, and it was too late when he wanted to explain it clearly. He tried to explain it well when he went to dinner at home tonight, but she was angry and wanted to break up with him. Cheng Wan took the initiative to explain the situation to Jiming. She didn't know that Zhao Liang was the son of the boss of Deshan Home Furnishing beforehand, and Jiming didn't ask much. Zhao Liang went home dejected. His mother persuaded him to break Cheng Wan and take him to see Mr. Zhang's daughter. He disagreed, insisted on marrying Cheng Wan, and his father was furious. Cheng Wan lied that Zhao Liang went home alone after working overtime and bought supplements for his parents. Her mother was very dissatisfied, and Cheng Wan had to admit that she had quarreled with Zhao Liang. He ate downstairs with flowers and loudly confessed to Cheng Wan. The neighbors in the alley came to watch the fun. Cheng Wan insisted on breaking up with Zhao Liang. The mother learned that he was a rich second generation, and she persuaded Cheng Wan to give Zhao Liang a chance and tried her best to speak well of him. Cheng Wan turned against her mom on the spot, locked himself in the room, and refused to come out. Cheng Wan's brother Cheng Zhao went home for dinner. Zhao Liang asked him to help speak well of him. Cheng Wan called her brother to go home for dinner. The neighbor saw that Zhao Liang was too noisy and hit him on the head with a bamboo stick. Cheng Wan had to bite the bullet and go out to meet him. He swore that he would never lie to her again, and Cheng Wan was willing to forgive him. Jiming called to inform Cheng Wan that she could continue to stay in the company, but her bonus would be deducted. She was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling. Wu Yu came to work early in the morning. Seeing Cheng Wan back to work, she was very unhappy. Jiming held regular meetings and asked everyone in the marketing department to make a promotional plan for the 520 wedding season and to open a competition. Zhu Zheng called on everyone to participate actively. The mother posted photos of Cheng Wan and Zhao Liang on her moments, publicly showing that Zhao Liang's family was rich and powerful. The aunts in the dance team envied her. Cheng Wan stayed up late to work overtime to write a plan. Zhao Liang came to pick up her and brought her a midnight snack. Her mother called Cheng Wan, and Zhao Liang took the initiative to propose to go to her house for dinner tomorrow. Zhao Liang wanted to keep his appointment with the Mai family, but his mother forced him to meet Zhang's daughter. Unable to avoid it, he reluctantly went to the arranged meeting. He was honest with the girl, explaining that he had a girlfriend and was only there because his mother pressured him. She agreed to let him go, and Zhao Liang quickly informed Cheng Wan that he would come over as soon as he finished his work. Meanwhile, Jiming visited his grandmother at a nursing home, where she revealed that Cheng Wan often visited her. Grandma Chen saw that Zhao Liang was dating another girl. Zhao Liang quickly said goodbye to Zhang's daughter and rushed to the Mai family's home. The whole family waited anxiously for a long time, but there was no sign of him. Grandma Chen sent Cheng Wan a message about Zhao Liang's blind date, leaving her deeply disappointed. She went out for a walk alone. As Zhao Liang arrived at the entrance of the Sanheli alleyway, he called her, but she, upset, told him she wanted to break up. He hurriedly tried to explain that he had no choice but to attend the blind date, insisting it was a formality. However, Cheng Wan didn't believe him. Her best friend, Mao Mao, arrived and, without asking any questions, scolded him harshly. Zhao Liang's car blocked the alleyway, so a security guard asked him to move it. The mother praised Mao Mao, telling Cheng Wan to learn from her since Mao Mao was married with a child and living a comfortable life. But Mao Mao surprised everyone by announcing that she had divorced and that her child, Ding Ding, had been awarded to her ex-husband. The mother was shocked. But Mao Mao quickly changed the subject and gave everyone in the Mai family gifts. After dinner, Mao Mao took Cheng Wan to see the shop she had just rented, where she planned to open a boutique jewelry store. Reflecting on her relationship with Zhao Liang, Mao Mao advised Cheng Wan not to worry too much and to live each day happily, which helped her feel a bit better. The mother worried the Shin family would look down on Cheng Wan, so she took out the family's savings to prepare a decent dowry for her daughter. However, she found that the money wasn't enough. She considered selling her jewelry to raise more funds, and the father even thought of pawning his beloved watch. As Cheng Wan overheard her parents' conversation, she felt mixed emotions. That night, she wrote a proposal for the Continue the Romance campaign and a plan to celebrate 520 with her parents. Jiming personally reviewed everyone's proposals. He publicly rejected Wu Yu's plan and praised Cheng Wan's proposal, giving her full responsibility for this marketing campaign. He assigned assistant He Dong to work with her and instructed her to purchase wedding favors from Deshan Home Furnishings. Cheng Wan, not wanting to see Zhao Liang, tried to find excuses to avoid the task, but Jiming encouraged her to negotiate the price boldly. She was reluctant to mix work with her personal life, but Lily advised her not to overthink it. Jia Liang sent flowers to apologize, and Lily suggested that Chengwan use the negotiation to reconcile with Jia Liang. After much consideration, she decided not to mix work and personal matters, so she asked Lily for Deshawn's sales representative's contact information. She went to meet manager Wang, the sales representative, but he was out on business, so she waited in the lobby until he returned around noon. Manager Wang invited her to lunch. Jiming had intended to use Chengwan and Jia Liang's relationship to negotiate a lower price. Still, when he learned from He Dong that manager Wang was a heavy drinker, he began to worry about Chengwan. Manager Wang hosted a banquet for Chengwan, inviting 3 sales managers to accompany them. He Dong was sent to help Chengwan handle the drinking and agreed to report the situation to Jiming. However, she decided to take matters into her own hands, raising her glass and drinking with manager Wang while negotiating the price. Jia Liang sent a message to manager Wang, asking him to give Chengwan a discount, promising a raise if he succeeded. Upon learning that she was Jia Liang's girlfriend, manager Wang immediately offered her a 20% discount, which she gladly accepted. He Dong, drinking with manager Wang, soon forgot all about Jiming's instructions as he got increasingly drunk. When Jiming couldn't reach He Dong by phone, he grew concerned and rushed to the restaurant. Upon arrival, he found He Dong and Chengwan celebrating their successful negotiation. Jiming downed a glass of wine and ended up so drunk that he passed out. He Dong and Chengwan had no choice but to use a luggage cart to push Jiming back to his place. He Dong even took a photo of Chengwan with the unconscious Yao Jiming as a memento. After struggling to get Jiming into his room, he handed his wallet to Chengwan and insisted on swimming, even starting to undress in front of her. Alarmed, she quickly called He Dong, who finally got Jiming to bed. Once he was settled, she left, but not before sending the signed contract to Jiming's email. The following day, Jiming woke up groggily and, upon checking his email, found a kickback contract. Confused, he called Chengwan to his office when he got to work, asking why she hadn't used her relationship with Jia Liang to negotiate the price. She explained that she wanted to rely on her efforts. Jiming rewarded her with a bonus and invited her parents to a couple's dinner at a hotel. Chengwan gave the invitation to her delighted parents. The couple attended the dinner, where Chengwan was in charge of coordinating the event. It was her first time planning such an event, and she was understandably nervous, especially since not many guests had arrived. Wu Yu, standing by, sneered and seemed eager to see her fail. Suddenly, Jia Liang, disguised as a knight, arrives with his friends to support Chengwan. He dramatically got down on one knee and proposed to her in front of everyone. Wu Yu quickly called Zhu Zheng, who angrily reprimanded Chengwan. She pulled Jia Liang aside, and he admitted that he had asked manager Wang to give her the 20% discount. Furious, Chengwan stormed off, claiming she was busy with work. Her mother rushed over to smooth things out and invited Jia Liang to dinner at their home. Her mother prepared a feast to entertain Jia Liang, who thoroughly enjoyed the meal. Seizing the opportunity, she suggested meeting his parents. Jia Liang agreed to arrange it soon, swearing to make Chengwan happy. Later that night, when Chengwan returned home and discovered that her mom had brought Jia Liang, she hurried home to confront her mother. The mom tried to persuade her to accept Jia Liang's proposal, but Chengwan remained non-committal. She called Jia Liang alone, and he repeatedly apologized, even pulling out a portable charger she had given him 3 years ago. When he had stayed at a hotel and his phone died, she had given him the charger, which had become a symbol of their relationship. Jia Liang wanted to recharge their relationship using the charger. Touched, Chengwan finally smiled through her tears and forgave him, leaving Jia Liang grinning joyfully. Jia Liang's proposal was successful, and he eagerly shared the good news with his mother, Chen Dejing, asking her to arrange a meeting between both parents as soon as possible to discuss the wedding. His mother initially wanted her son to marry Zhang's daughter, a business partner, but since Jia Liang insisted on marrying Chengwan, she had to relent. Jia Liang's sister, Xin Jiali, was strongly opposed. She had married Luo Mingli under their parents' orders and often found herself in cold conflicts with him due to emotional incompatibility. The mother advised Jiali not to interfere but suggested choosing a luxury restaurant and ordering the most expensive dishes to intimidate the Mai family, who came from a poor alley. Early in the morning, Chengwan went to Jiming to report on her work and repeatedly apologized to him. Jia Liang's sudden proposal during the 520 event caught her off guard and ruined the original plan. However, Jiming did not blame her, as Jia Liang's proposal had made the hotel very popular. Chengwan personally made some desserts and sent them to Jiming to taste. He visited his grandmother at the nursing home, bringing her some clothes and desserts. The grandmother immediately recognized that the desserts were made by Chengwan and urged Jiming to treat her well, which he readily promised. Dejing set the time and place for the parents' meeting, and Zhao Liang immediately informed Cheng Wan. Professor Cheng wanted to take Cheng Zhao to meet a famous lawyer who had just returned from abroad over the weekend, as it could influence his post-graduation job placement. However, since he needed to accompany his parents to the meeting with the Shin family, he had to explain the situation to Professor Cheng via text. Ma Mao and Cheng Wan accompanied her mother to pick out a kipao. She loved it, but the price made her hesitant. Ma Mao lied about having a discount coupon, which convinced her to accept. When Cheng Wan went to pay, she ran into Jiming, who was there to choose a gift. He congratulated her, and Cheng Wan assured him she would continue to work hard after getting married. Jiming chose an expensive watch as a gift. Mai Chengzhao arrived and joined them for dinner. Hearing that Cheng Wan's father hadn't borrowed a car, Ma Mao offered her own to them to use for the banquet. Cheng Zhao began to develop feelings for Ma Mao and curiously asked her about her views on relationships. She expressed that she wanted a passionate love and did not want to enter into another marriage. The next day was the weekend. Wan Yu put on her new kipao and admired herself in the mirror while Lei Shen polished his shoes and lamented the passage of time. His daughter was getting married. Lu Wanyu felt the same, and Cheng Wan, overhearing their conversation, felt a pang in her heart. Unable to sleep, she went to chat with her brother. He received a message from his senior. The law firm had rejected his resume. He was disappointed but kept his spirits up for a heart-to-heart talk with Cheng Wan. Chen Dejing arrived at the restaurant with her son and daughter, calling Xin Jishan to remind him not to be late. He was feeling annoyed and had his secretary massage his temples. Meanwhile, Cheng Wan's family of 4 arrived early at the meeting place. Her mother warmly greeted Jiali, but Jiali responded with a cold tone. Jiali acted arrogantly and superiorly in front of the Mai family. She deliberately asked Cheng Wan to order the dishes, and Zhao Liang accompanied her. She was displeased with his sister's bossy demeanor, and Zhao Liang repeatedly apologized, trying hard to speak well of Jiali. Lei Shen thanked Chen Dejing for her hospitality and expressed his reluctance to see his daughter getting married soon. Lu Wanyu praised Cheng Wan in front of everyone, and Zhao Liang promised to love her for the rest of his life. However, Jiali pointed out that Lei Shen didn't know how to drink red wine, prompting a heated argument with Lu Wanyu. Creating a very awkward atmosphere, Jiali deliberately picked the fishtail for Cheng Wan's parents, but Cheng Zhao quickly took it and ate it to ease his parents' embarrassment. Lu Wanyu discussed the wedding plans with Chen Dejing, who left it up to Zhao Liang to decide. He wanted a destination wedding, but Lu Wanyu insisted on a lively wedding in their hometown. Jiali mocked the quality of the guests Lu Wanyu would invite, which made her angry. Zhao Liang surprisingly sided with his sister, which was the last straw for Cheng Wan. She announced that the wedding was off. Jiming came to deliver a gift for Cheng Wan but overheard the families arguing fiercely outside the door. He quietly left the gift and went away. Jiali shouted at Cheng Wan, and Lu Wanyu, infuriated, started arguing with her. She dragged Cheng Wan and Lei Shen away. Zhao Liang hurriedly chased after them, trying to persuade Cheng Wan with kind words. However, she had seen through the Shin family and decided to break up with Zhao Liang. Back in the private room, he shouted angrily at his sister, who stormed out, slamming the door. Cheng Wan received the gift from Jiming and called to thank him. He advised her not to be bothered by the Shin family's prejudice and to live confidently. Cheng Zhao made a bowl of noodles to comfort his mother, who had high hopes for him and wanted him to bring honor to the family, but he found it difficult to express his true feelings. Cheng Wan went to Ma Mao to vent. Zhao Liang kept sending her messages and apologizing, but she was fed up and ultimately gave up on him. Ma Mao took Cheng Wan to a bar to relax. She drank a lot in one go and soon became intoxicated. His brother came to pick her up and suddenly received an internship offer from Fang Yuan law firm. He was overjoyed, and Ma Mao was also happy for him, ordering him a drink to celebrate. The next morning, Cheng Wan returned home and made a delicious breakfast to apologize to her mother, who had long since forgiven her and hoped for her happiness. Cheng Wan promised to find a boyfriend who would meet Lu Wanyu's approval. She gave Mom a gift and made a cake as an apology, which deeply comforted her. The wife asked her husband to borrow money from Grandma Chen for Cheng Wan's dowry, but since Chen Shujun was not his biological mother, Lei Shen found it hard to ask. Lu Wanyu went to the nursing home to see Mrs. Chen but learned that she had been taken out for breakfast. Jiming invited his grandma to have breakfast at Xing'an Li, and she was very happy. He proposed that he and Cheng Wan help Mrs. Chen manage the business at Xing'an Li. Mrs. Chen found various excuses for her to decline, so Jiming suggested that she buy insurance instead. Lu Wanyu, having heard from the nursing home staff that Jiming had taken Mrs. Chen out, rushed to the hotel to find them. Upon entering and hearing Jiming's proposal, she assumed he was trying to deceive Mrs. Chen out of her money. Without listening further, she barged in and attacked Jiming. Chengwan rushed to the nursing home upon hearing the news. After quickly understanding the situation, she repeatedly apologized to Jiming on her mother's behalf. Upon realizing that Jiming was Chengwan's boss, her mother reluctantly apologized to him. She explained her reason for coming. She wanted Mrs. Chen to provide money for Chengwan's dowry so the Shin family wouldn't look down on them. Chengwan strongly opposed this. She declared she would rather not get married than compromise with the Shin family. Mrs. Chen pulled Chengwan aside to ask about her feelings regarding the marriage. She revealed all the insults and ridicule his sister had directed at their family. She expressed her desire to improve her parents' lives through her efforts rather than relying on marriage to change her fate. Moved, Grandma Chen gave her a jade bracelet that had been passed down in their family and advised her to consider the marriage carefully. Lei Shen, learning that his wife had gone to ask Mrs. Chen for money, couldn't help but reprimand her. Mrs. Chen reminded Jiming to take good care of Chengwan, whom she considered her niece despite having no blood relation. Unable to sleep, Chengwan decided to break up with Zhao Liang. She put the ring back in its box. Chengwan invited Jiming for coffee. He asked her to accompany him to visit Mrs. Chen over the weekend, and she readily agreed, mentioning that she often visited Mrs. Chen. Curious, he asked why she was so good to his grandma despite not being related by blood. Chengwan explained that she had long regarded Mrs. Chen as her grandmother, and they agreed to visit the nursing home together more often in the future. Lu Wanyu prepared a generous gift and sent Lai Tian to talk to Xin Jishan to find out his thoughts about the children's marriage. Lei Shen, having no choice, went to see Jishan without an appointment and was stopped by the receptionist. Meanwhile, Jishan, accompanied by his secretary, met Jiming. Lai Tian introduced himself as Jiming's driver and offered to drive them to see Jiming, using the opportunity to inquire about Xin Jishan's thoughts on the marriage. Upon learning that he was related to Jiming, Jishan saw the marriage as a chance to win the hotel's bid. He went home and explained the situation to his wife, Chen Daijing, suggesting that they have Zhao Liang and Chengwan get engaged first. Cheng Zhao reported to work at Feng Yuan law firm, where his senior arranged for him to assist Lawyer Lu. However, Lawyer Lu looked down on Cheng Zhao's school and qualifications, mocking him publicly and leaving him feeling awkward and embarrassed. Chen Daijing secretly followed Lu Wanyu to the market, where she approached her and offered to help. She followed Lu Wanyu home, learning to make spicy sauce while apologizing profusely and trying her best to please her. Chen Daijing asked Wanyu to speak favorably to Jiming, hoping he would award the hotel bid to their family. Chen Daijing went all out to please Wanyu, even introducing Cheng Zhao to work at her son-in-law Luo Mingli's Fengyuan law firm, not realizing he was already interning there. Daijing promised to make Cheng Zhao a full-time employee immediately. Overjoyed, Wanyu agreed to approach Jiming to secure the order for Shin's family. Wanyu gave her homemade spicy sauce to Chen Daijing, who threw it into the trash as soon as she left. Wanyu went to the hotel to find Jiming, bringing her homemade smoked fish for him to taste. She expressed her intention of getting him to grant the hotel order to Shin's family. When Chengwan heard about this, she immediately went to the office to pull her mother away, forbidding her from interfering in the bidding process. Upon learning that Chen Daijing had approached her mother under the guise of goodwill and mentioned Cheng Zhao's job, Chengwan was angry. Cheng Zhao wanted to earn a full-time position at the law firm through his efforts and didn't want to sacrifice his sister's marriage to secure his job. The mother yelled at him, but Chengwan called him out to encourage him not to care about others' opinions and to work hard to gain recognition. Cheng Zhao was worried that this would affect her marriage, but she assured him she could handle it and told him not to overthink. Early in the morning, Cheng Zhao arrived at the law firm. His colleagues' attitudes toward him had changed drastically, congratulating him on becoming a full-time employee early. Lawyer Lu even reassigned fieldwork to someone else, leaving him with simple office tasks and making him uncomfortable. Jiming transferred Chengwan to the position of administrative secretary. Zhu Zheng and his colleagues were happy for her, but Chengwan was confused, and Wu Yu felt deeply resentful. After work, Cheng Zhao went directly to Mao Mao's shop. She was overwhelmed with a backlog of orders, so he helped her with packing and shipping without thanks. Jiming gave the bidding documents to Chengwan. She couldn't understand why he promoted her and suspected it was related to the Shin family. He didn't want to explain much and encouraged her to do her job well. Chengwan delivered an invitation to Mr. Shin, who was on a business trip. As she left, she saw Zhao Liang and mentioned Chen Dejing's backdoor approach to her mother. He dismissed her concerns and left quickly for a meeting. Mr. Shin's secretary witnessed everything and came over to greet Chengwan. They were college classmates. Chengwan was surprised to find out Zhu Baochao was now Mr. Shin's secretary. Bao Chao revealed that Jiming intended to use the bidding to eliminate Deshan Home from the competition and asked Chengwan to help the Shin family. Chengwan, not wanting to mix work and personal feelings, made an excuse and left, leaving Bao Chao seething with anger. Cheng Zhao took the subway to work early in the morning and ran into Mao Mao at the subway exit. Cheng Zhao then poured out all his frustrations, and Mao Mao advised him not to care about his colleagues' gossip, which somewhat relieved him. Chen Dejing suspected that Chengwan was eyeing their family's wealth, and Jiali suggested that Chengwan sign a prenuptial agreement. Meanwhile, Bao Chao sought Wu Yu's help obtaining the hotel's bid price. Wu Yu refused outright, but Bao Chao offered her a generous gift and promised to improve her housing conditions once it was done. Tempted, Wu Yu was swayed. Since becoming Jiming's secretary, Chengwan had been working tirelessly, leaving early and returning late every day. Zhao Liang came to pick up Chengwan after work, but she was still unsure how to handle their relationship and ignored him. He playfully and stubbornly insisted in public, leaving Chengwan no choice but to get in his car and leave with him. He took her to a new house his parents had prepared for them. He told her it could be transferred to her name immediately if she liked it. Chengwan wanted to buy a home with their efforts and did not want to be swayed by his parents' property. She suspected Mr. Shin was giving her the house in exchange for the hotel bidding and questioned Zhao Liang, who admitted it and asked her to speak well of his family to Jiming. She felt powerless. Meanwhile, Cheng Zhao accidentally discovered a colleague drafting a prenuptial agreement for Zhao Liang. He immediately called his sister to inform her. Zhao Liang knew nothing about it, but Chengwan was furious, feeling insulted by Shin's parents, who used such an agreement to demean her. In anger, she left him. She went alone to the Huangpu River to clear her mind, recalling Jiming's reminder that her place in the Shin family would only be in the kitchen and garden. Concerned, her brother came to the river after work to comfort her. Chengwan had hoped to live a simple life with Zhao Liang, but it had become a mess because of his family. She vowed to change her fate through her abilities. Seeing her gradually calm down, Cheng Zhao was relieved. Zhao Liang, furious, went home to confront his mother and learned that the idea of the prenuptial agreement came from Jiali. He vented all his anger on his sister. When their father returned home after work and learned about the matter, he scolded his wife and daughter harshly. He had gone to great lengths to use Chengwan to connect with Jiming, but now things were a mess. He visited Jiming, trying to get close to him, and asked for a chance for Deshan Home in the bidding. Jiming readily agreed and asked Chengwan to escort Mr. Shin out. He apologized to Chengwan for the prenuptial agreement and asked her to forget the past and help Deshan Home. She refused to cut corners and hoped Deshan Home would win the bidding based on its merits. He Dong, who was eavesdropping, reported the conversation to Jiming. When Jiming learned about the prenuptial agreement between the Shin family and Chengwan, he was furious and wanted to expose Deshan Home's bribery scandal publicly. He Dong worried that this would affect Chengwan's career and marriage prospects, but Jiming did not want her to marry Zhao Liang. The bidding took place as scheduled, with the participating home furnishing manufacturers arriving on time and sending representatives to give speeches. Zhao Liang represented Deshan Home and gave a presentation. Dennis temporarily asked the manufacturers to leave the room while the judges deliberated. After discussion, the judges chose Tianhe Home. Mr. Shin thought he had it in the bag, but Jiming produced another rebate list from Deshan Home for hotel promotional gifts. Zhao Liang admitted he had approved the discount for Chengwan. His father publicly announced the relationship between Chengwan and his son, accusing her of using this relationship to ask for kickbacks from his son. Chengwan defended herself, but Mr. Shin refused to believe her. Jiming quickly intervened to clear her name. Suddenly, Bao Chao stood up and accused Chengwan of leaking the bid price to Tianhe Home. Mr. Shin was convinced that Chengwan and Jiming had conspired against Zhao Liang and forcibly took him away. Chengwan confronted Jiming, questioning the rebate list. He admitted that he had seen the rebate list long ago and believed she had leaked the bid price to Tianhe Home. Chengwan retraced the entire sequence of events and realized that Jiming had been using her to deal with the Shin family and eliminate Dennis from the competition. He admitted this, leaving her disillusioned. She had always felt that Jiming had been looking out for her, even accompanying her to visit her grandmother, only to discover that it was all a facade. Ji Ming suspected that someone had hacked into Chengwan's email to leak the bid information, so he called the security department to check the surveillance footage from that day. Unable to find Chengwan anywhere, he went to the nursing home to ask his grandma about her whereabouts. She guessed that Ji Ming had mistreated Chengwan and scolded him. Realizing he could not keep Chengwan, Ji Ming asked He Dong to find a suitable position for her elsewhere. Having successfully undermined Dennis, Pei Sheng called Ji Ming to celebrate the victory, but he only wanted to leave the mess behind and return to headquarters as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Chengwan tried to call Zhao Liang to explain the bid leak, but he did not answer. Mao Mao and Cheng Zhao came to console her. Chengwan wanted to resign but didn't want to be accused of leaking company secrets. She asked her colleague, Shui Li, to open her email account, only to find out that her computer had been confiscated for evidence and the hotel's surveillance footage had been sealed. She suspected Bao Chao of being behind this. Chengwan confronted Bao Chao, questioning her about the email's origin, but Zhu Zheng blamed her for not cooperating with her. He Dong called Chengwan, revealing that someone had sent the email using her computer. She immediately recognized the person as Wu Yu and confronted her, secretly recording their conversation. She presented the evidence to Jiming, and Wu Yu admitted to being bribed by Bao Chao, pleading with Chengwan to forgive. Zhu Zheng also asked for leniency, but Chengwan insisted on calling the police. Wu Yu tearfully confessed her difficulties establishing herself in Shanghai, while Chengwan expressed her struggles and determination to support her family through hard work. Ji Ming agreed to handle Wu Yu's case with the police, and Chengwan requested a transfer to be as far from Ji Ming as possible. He assigned her to the property department of the hotel apartments. When Chengwan returned home, the mother had prepared her favorite dishes. The father sensed something was troubling her, but she made excuses to cover it up. Chengwan packed up and reported to the property department. Shui Li voiced her grievances, but Chengwan reminded her to be cautious. Dennis was suspended and transferred back to the Swiss headquarters. Although Jiming had helped Pei Sheng achieve her goal, he felt no joy. And He Dong noticed that Ji Ming had feelings for Chengwan. Mr. Shin decided to fire Bao Chao, who resisted, but he was firm and uncompromising. At the apartment property, Manager Zhang introduced Chengwan to each department and briefly explained her responsibilities, which included managing 16 tenants. Manager Zhang instructed her to collect overdue property fees from Ms. Chen in Unit 512. However, Ms. Chen refused to pay and complained about various unsatisfactory services. Ms. Chen even demanded that she buy her milk tea and deliver it within an hour. Chengwan ran to the store and returned with the milk tea on time. Ms. Chen, however, continued to assign her numerous tasks, which Mai completed patiently despite being utterly exhausted. Jiming watched everything. He then moved to the same floor where Chengwan was working, giving her various tasks while showing concern. However, she did not appreciate his attention. Chengwan learned about the dispute between Ms. Chen and the butler from her colleagues. She carefully reviewed Ms. Chen's information and arranged for her to attend the hotel's regular wine tasting events. Meanwhile, Cheng Zhao was diligently performing his duties and went to the client's factory to investigate, resulting in him being late for a meeting. Lawyer Lu complained about him to their superiors. Cheng Zhao rushed in with the evidence and documents he had collected. The firm's leaders were pleased, advising Lawyer Lu to focus more on his work. Chengwan went out of her way to meet all of Ms. Chen's unreasonable demands and invited her to a wine tasting event at the hotel, allowing her to meet potential clients. Ms. Chen, planning to start her own business, was grateful to Chengwan for providing such a valuable opportunity and promptly paying all the overdue property fees. Witnessing this, Jiming felt deeply gratified. When she returned home late, her parents were at the supermarket. Cheng Zhao seized the opportunity to persuade her to leave Zhao Liang, urging her not to compromise for his job. She reassured him to focus on his work and not let her relationship with Zhao Liang affect his future. The mother felt her son was hiding something and suspected that Chengwan and Zhao Liang had fought. Reluctant to ask her daughter directly, she decided to visit Shin's family herself. Early in the morning, she brought smoked fish to Chen Daijing, who quickly guessed her intention and accused Chengwan and Jiming of teaming up to bring down Shin's family. She claimed that Chengwan had leaked the bid information to Shin's competitor, and Jiming had reported the kickback he gave Chengwan. After learning the details, Lu Wanyu felt her daughter had done nothing wrong. Shin Jiali confronted Lu Wanyu angrily, but she decided not to argue, intending to leave with her fish. A heavy rain started to fall. When Leishan learned that his wife had gone to Shin's family, he wanted to take Jiming home and pick up her. In the meantime, Shin Jiali accidentally revealed that she had pressured Chengwan into signing a prenuptial agreement. Furious, Lu Wanyu couldn't believe they forced Chengwan to sign such a humiliating contract. Hearing this, Chengwan rushed over, pulled her mother away, and announced that she had not leaked bid information and knew nothing about the kickback. She declared she would not let her parents suffer for her love for Zhao Liang and broke up with him on the spot. After saying this, she took her mother left. Zhao Liang ran out into the rain to catch up with them. The mother advised Chengwan to talk well with him. She once again proposed to break up with him. He refused, venting all his suppressed grievances, saying he had fought with his sister countless times for her. Feeling exhausted, she decided to end the relationship and left decisively. Her father arrived by car with Jiming. They witnessed the scene from a distance. Jiming told him to take Lu Wanyu and Chengwan home first, saying he would find his way back later. As she saw Zhao Liang standing alone in the rain, Chengwan silently wished him happiness. Back home, she locked herself in her room, neither eating nor speaking. When her brother returned from work and learned of the breakup, he was relieved for her. Worried, the mother wanted to check on her, but she emerged smiling, made an excuse to buy laundry detergent, and left in a hurry. She went to the Huangpu River alone, where Cheng Zhao followed and gently persuaded her. He wanted to resign from Fengyuan law firm, but she urged him not to act impulsively or let her situation with Zhao Liang affect his career. The next day, when Chengwan arrived at the apartment lobby, she slipped on the wet floor, not noticing the warning sign placed by the cleaning lady. A colleague rushed over to help her up. Jiming, who happened to be in the lobby, wanted to comfort her but ultimately decided against it. Seeing his daughter in pain, the mother extremely regretted her impulsive, harsh words to the Shin family that day. She considered visiting their family again to try to salvage Chengwan and Zhalang's relationship, but her husband thought it was bad. Knowing Chengwan's proximity to her grandmother Chen, he mustered the courage to visit Mrs. Chen at the nursing home to seek her help. He explained everything that had happened to Chengwan at work, her and Lu Wanyu's grievances with the Shin family, and her breakup with Zhao Liang. She called Chengwan to the nursing home and asked about her well-being. Chengwan then expressed all her frustrations and grievances, crying in her grandmother's arms. Mrs. Chen, who had experienced 2 marriages and seen many people, knew that Chengwan was reluctant to let go of her 3-year relationship. She supported Chengwan's decision and promised to be her strong backing. Mrs. Chen took her to eat at Xinganli, encouraging her to try the new dishes at the hotel. Chengwan's mood brightened, and when Mrs. Chen casually inquired about her new job, Chengwan replied that she was doing well and had even been named a 5-star butler last month. Chen Shujun was pleased and wished Mai Chengwan good fortune. Meanwhile, Mr. Shin and Bao Chao developed feelings for each other over time and secretly met frequently. After the bidding meeting, he wanted to calm the employees and asked Bao Chao to resign and leave the company. Feeling bored, she kept pestering him, who had no choice but to meet her secretly behind his family's back. Jiming visited his grandma. She blamed him for implicating Chengwan. He revealed that he had already made arrangements and wanted to help manage the Xinganli hotel with her assistance, hoping that Chengwan would assist him. He suggested taking her and Chengwan on a weekend trip to help them relax and also asked her to inspect one of the resort hotels under the Yu-Da group. When the weekend arrived, Chengwan came to the nursing home on time, bringing camping equipment. Jiming arrived to pick them up. Mrs. Chen hoped that they would resolve their misunderstandings, but the moment they met, they began to argue. Jiming deliberately mentioned Zhao Liang to provoke Chengwan. Mrs. Chen quickly intervened to calm things down. Jiming apologized, but Chengwan refused to accept it and ignored him out of spite. He drove them to a resort hotel hidden deep in the mountains. Mrs. Chen felt the hotel lacked warmth, and Chengwan pointed out several deficiencies in hotel management and staff service. Jiming decided to replace all the staff, but Chengwan's attempts to dissuade him were in vain. She accidentally learned that the hotel staff were all local villagers and persuaded Jiming not to dismiss them, but he was determined and remained firm. Afterward, Chengwan went for a massage with Mrs. Chen, and she inadvertently revealed that Jiming had suffered much since childhood, which made him unable to empathize easily. The next morning, Chengwan went to call Jiming for dinner, but he suddenly collapsed. She quickly called for hotel staff, and because the mountain roads were difficult, the employees helped to take him to a nearby health clinic. After persistent efforts from the medical staff, Jiming managed to pass his kidney stone. Chengwan stayed by his side without leaving. When he finally woke up, he saw Chengwan asleep, and his heart filled with tenderness. He called He-dong to assign work, but Chengwan snatched the phone and insisted he rest, again asking him not to dismiss the employees. Chengwan carefully took care of his daily needs and learned about his unfortunate past. His father abandoned his mother, who then abandoned him. Later, his father went to prison, and his mother died accidentally while looking for a new boyfriend. Jiming only had one relative left, his grandma. Chengwan sympathized deeply with him. With her attentive care, Jiming quickly recovered and was discharged. The resort hotel manager came to see him off and thanked Chengwan for her suggestions, which led to a complete hotel improvement. Jiming also agreed to let the staff stay on. Chengwan was delighted and surprised at how much he had changed in just a few days. Chengwan unexpectedly met Bao Chao and discovered that she lived on the 4th floor. She greeted her warmly, and Chengwan could only respond awkwardly. Manager Zhang called Chengwan to help with a problem for Bao Chao, the owner of Unit 416. Rushing to the 4th floor, she accidentally witnessed Bao Chao hugging Mr. Shin. The two of them behaving affectionately in the hallway. Feeling awkward, she quickly turned around and entered the elevator, where she ran into Jiming. He noticed something was wrong, but Chengwan tried her best to cover it up. Bao Chao took Mr. Shin to the underground parking lot and repeatedly promised never to act intimately with him in public again. He suspected she had intentionally moved there to expose their affair to Chengwan, but Bao Chao denied it, and Mr. Shin didn't question her further. Bao Chao then invited Chengwan to a lavish dinner. Suspecting that Bao Chao deliberately wanted her to see their affair, she admitted it. She intended to pressure Mr. Shin to marry her as soon as possible. Chengwan warned her against taking shortcuts and advised her to be practical, but Bao Chao didn't listen and even asked Chengwan to keep it a secret. Otherwise, Mr. Shin might end up losing everything. Mr. Shin sent someone with a bank card to Chengwan, asking her to keep his affair with Bao Chao a secret, but she refused to accept it. He returned home in time for dinner and pressured his son to break up with Chengwan completely. Zhao Liang refused and argued with him, leading to a heated father-son confrontation. Bao Chao texted Mr. Shin, claiming she had already dealt with Chengwan, prompting Mr. Shin to decide to come home for dinner every day from then on. Jiming brought a late-night snack for Chengwan, reminding her not to meddle in the private matters between Mr. Shin and Bao Chao. Chengwan showed little interest and took the opportunity to get Jiming to sign a lease renewal contract. Suddenly, her mother called, informing her that a pipe had burst at home. She rushed home and found it flooded. She hurriedly helped the mother clean up the water while her father grumbled at his wife while fixing the pipe. Cheng Zhao and Mao Mao arrived with the repairman just in time. Seeing the mess, Mao Mao advised Chengwan to take her parents to a hotel. Though the mother was reluctant, the house was uninhabitable. Chengwan told Mao Mao to go home and rest, then returned to the old house to help Cheng Zhao clean up the water. Cheng Zhao's computer was damaged by water, and he hadn't saved the data. Chengwan promised to buy him a new one. As they cleaned, he found a box of childhood toys, and the two siblings reminisced, feeling a warm sense of nostalgia. The burst pipe in the My family home had caused water damage to the downstairs neighbor, who demanded compensation. Chengwan promised to coordinate with the residences committee to resolve the issue immediately. The repairman estimated that the house repairs would take over 2 months and cost 100,000 yuan, leaving the mother in shock. Jiming offered for Chengwan's parents to stay in the apartment, agreeing to give them the lowest possible rent, but she could not afford it. Wishing to help her, Jiming hesitated, fearing she wouldn't accept. He discussed with He Dong and arranged for Shuili to find a renovation team for her. Meanwhile, Cheng Zhao stayed late in sending the legal letter to Liu Yuxian. However, he deliberately nitpicked and used the excuse that the client's requirements had changed without informing Cheng Zhao, stopping all his work. Unconvinced, Cheng Zhao went to complain to Luo Mingli, requesting to be transferred to another team, but he firmly refused, stating that he had only kept Cheng Zhao around because of the Shin family's influence. When Cheng Zhao asked to settle his salary, Luo Mingli refused, accusing him of lying to avoid overtime. Unable to bear it any longer, Cheng Zhao resigned on the spot. A senior colleague, witnessing the entire scene, realized that Cheng Zhao had been wronged, but as he had little influence, he could only quietly offer him words of encouragement. Cheng Zhao packed his things and left the law firm. Mao Mao called him over to help assemble some fitness equipment. He left his things at the door and easily assembled the treadmill. She asked him to supervise his running to lose weight, and Cheng Zhao happily agreed. On his way home from Mao Mao, carrying a big box, Cheng Zhao noticed a delivery courier on the street and was inspired to take up a job delivering packages. Chengwan, with limited money, searched online for a cost-effective renovation team. Shuili took the initiative to approach her and introduced a good renovation team, which Chengwan gratefully accepted. Jiming catered to Ms. Chen's preferences by introducing her to clients and hinting that she should express her gratitude to Chengwan. Ms. Chen immediately understood his suggestion. Since Chengwan discovered the affair between Mr. Shin and Bao Chao, he did not visit Bao Chao at the apartment. She found out she was pregnant and texted Mr. Shin, threatening to terminate the pregnancy. He rushed to the hospital to stop her. Bao Chao demanded that he divorce his wife, but he refused and threatened her. In anger, she pushed him to the ground, causing him to faint. Ms. Chen, representing the owners on the 5th floor, brought a banner to thank Chengwan. Jiming happened to come by to sign the lease renewal contract, and manager Zhang asked the three of them to take a photo together. Chengwan guessed that Jiming had contributed to the gift and thanked him. Bao Chao suddenly called Chengwan for help, revealing that Mr. Shin had suffered a stroke and was being rushed to the emergency room. Chengwan didn't want to get involved and suggested Bao Chao contact Mr. Shin's family. Without money to pay for the surgery, Bao Chao was too afraid to call Mr. Shin's family and kept calling Chengwan. Unable to ignore her, Chengwan called Zhao Liang. Jiming advised her not to get involved, but she insisted on returning the bank card in person, so Jiming drove her to the hospital. The doctor asked Mr. Shin's family to sign the consent form for the surgery. Bao Chao, seeing Chengwan, quickly found an excuse to slip away. Chengwan called Zhao Liang, who instructed her to sign the form. When Jiming arrived at the ward after parking the car, it was too late to stop her. He blamed Chengwan for getting involved, but she said she couldn't just watch someone die. Soon after, Zhao Liang and Zhao Li arrived. While Bao Chao quietly inquired about Mr. Shin's condition, Zhao Li grabbed Bao Chao, insisting on settling their accounts, prompting her to reveal that she was pregnant with Mr. Shin's child. Upon hearing this, Chen Daijing fainted from anger. Zhao Li charged at Bao Chao, and a fight broke out. Chengwan tried to mediate, but Zhao Li turned her fury on her, punching and kicking her. Jiming protected Chengwan with all his might, unable to tolerate it longer. Chengwan returned the bank card Mr. Shin had used to buy her silence and pulled Jiming away with her. He praised Chengwan's actions that day, and she treated him to a meal to express her gratitude. After dinner, he drove her home and suggested she take a day off the next day, but she was reluctant to lose her perfect attendance bonus of 1,500 yuan. After dropping her off, Jiming received a call from Ms. Pei Sheng, urging him to expedite the Xinganli project. Thanks to the medical team's efforts, Mr. Shin finally pulled through. Zhao Liang persuaded his mother to visit Mr. Shin, but she refused. Zhao Liang and Zhao Li came in to see their father. He called Chengwan to thank her, admitting that if she hadn't signed the surgery consent form in time, he might not have survived. He acknowledged that his family had misjudged her and repeatedly apologized, offering her a generous red envelope, which she politely declined. Seeing the mother crying quietly in the living room, Zhao Li advised Zhao Liang to reconcile with Chengwan to regain their father's favor. Otherwise, the family would be ruined. The Mai family home suffered from a significant water leak due to a burst pipe, causing a flood in the house. The electrical wiring in their home was outdated, and the food in the refrigerator was spoiled. So, Chengwan took her parents and Cheng Zhao out to eat. The mother couldn't help but complain loudly, saying she no longer wanted to live in the old house. She urged Chengwan to reconcile with Zhao Liang so they could leave this broken place sooner. However, she felt there was no way to repair her relationship with him and didn't want to continue the relationship. Cheng Zhao had secretly quit his job at Feng Yuan law firm and applied to work as a delivery man. Zhao Liang wanted to reconcile with Chengwan, but she firmly refused. He then tried to introduce her to a job, but she politely declined, stating that she wanted to prove herself through her own efforts and did not want to suffer in the office as someone with connections. Left with no choice, Zhao Liang had to let it go. Jiming, watching from a distance, gained a newfound respect for Chengwan, and He Dong couldn't help but tease him about it. Later, when meeting with the renovation company's leader, she accidentally saw Cheng Zhao delivering food. He fell off his electric scooter but, despite his pain, managed to deliver the order on time. Chengwan helped him bandage his wound, and Cheng Zhao told her about his resignation. He believed he would find a new job soon and wanted to share her burden. Chengwan regretted not accepting the job that Zhao Liang had recommended, feeling helpless as she watched her brother struggle. However, Cheng Zhao supported her decision, and the two resolved to work together to change their family's situation, refusing to let Chengwan bow down to Zhao Liang. Meanwhile, a dejected Zhao Liang returned home. Upon hearing that Chengwan didn't want to reconcile, his sister scolded him, saying that if he couldn't bring her into their circle, their father would eventually give away their family's assets to outsiders. Frustrated, Zhao Liang handed his phone to her and told her to apologize to Chengwan herself. Lu Wanyu received a long message from Zhao Liang, expressing his deep love for Chengwan and asking for her help persuading her to reconcile. He also invited her to visit their future home together the next day. Excited, Lu Wanyu went to meet Zhao Liang, but to her surprise, Zhao Li had set up the meeting. She apologized to Lu Wanyu and desperately begged her to convince Chengwan to get engaged to her brother quickly. Lu Wanyu, fond of the large house, agreed to try. Zhao Li returned home and returned the phone to Zhao Liang, who was still fast asleep. She woke him up to go see Chengwan and revealed that she had secretly met with Lu Wanyu. He couldn't help but complain, but Zhao Li reminded him of the importance of winning back Chengwan, warning him of the consequences if he failed. She even lied, saying Lu Wanyu had already persuaded Chengwan to change her mind. Without telling Chengwan, Lu Wanyu invited her brother and sister to Shanghai, asking them to attend the engagement banquet between Chengwan and Zhao Liang at the Botticelli Hotel. The mother took Chengwan to a brand store to buy a dress. She was puzzled, thinking it was just a family dinner with her aunt and uncle and that there was no need for such extravagance. However, she couldn't resist her mother's persistent coaxing and reluctantly wore the dress. Chengwan sensed something was off with her mom, but before she could react, the mother dragged her to the banquet hall. The hall was lavishly decorated, with a banner at the center of the stage announcing the engagement of Xin Jia Liang and Mai Chenghuan. Friends and relatives from the Mai and Xin families were present, and Jia Liang stood on the stage waiting for her. Chenghuan immediately understood what was going on. Hearing about the engagement banquet downstairs, he Dong quickly informed Jiming, who rushed over without hesitation. Cheng Zhao and his father arrived soon after and complained to Wan Yu about not consulting anyone about making decisions. Chenghuan stood silently, not saying a word. Thinking that she had agreed to the engagement, Jia Liang was shocked to learn that she knew nothing about it. He apologized profusely to her. Jia Li quickly stepped in to remind him to go through the ceremony to appease their father first. She promised to give Chenghuan anything if she agreed to marry him. Furious, Chenghuan called Jia Liang up to the stage and publicly announced that they had broken up, apologizing to both families. The mother tried to stop her, claiming that she and Jia Liang had a small disagreement and that the engagement should continue. Chenghuan stood firm and refused to budge. Feeling utterly humiliated, the mother, in a fit of anger, threatened to sever their mother-daughter relationship. Hurt, Chenghuan declared she was tired of being the obedient daughter, prompting the mother to slap her hard across the face. Chenghuan snatched the necklace, threw it on the ground, and resolutely left. Jiming, witnessing the scene, quickly chased after her. Chenghuan's father warned Mr. Xin to keep his son from bothering Chenghuan again, and with that, he took Lu Wanyu and Cheng Zhao away. Mr. Xin, embarrassed, vented his anger on his daughter. She brought up his extramarital affairs, causing him to be angry to the point of having a stroke. Chenghuan wandered alone by the river, trying to clear her mind. Jiming arrived soon after to comfort her with kind words. The husband blamed his wife for making decisions on her own. Just then, an angry Chenghuan stormed back home, packed her things, and announced she was moving out. The mother refused to let her go, calling her ungrateful. Chenghuan, unwilling to listen to her nagging, grabbed her suitcase and slammed the door on her way out. Cheng Zhao tried desperately to comfort her. The father caught up with Chenghuan and gave her all his savings. She refused, insisting she wanted to be independent. Her father forced a bank card into her hands and tearfully said goodbye. With her luggage in hand, Chenghuan left, where Jiming was waiting outside, ready to help her find a place to stay. Mao Mao, who received a call from Cheng Zhao, rushed to pick up Chenghuan. However, she refused to bother her and preferred staying with Grandma Chen. Jiming offered to drive her, but Mao Mao insisted on doing it herself. She tried to cheer Chenghuan up during the drive, promising to help her through this difficult time. Mrs. Chen welcomed Chenghuan into her home, made her a cup of tea to reduce swelling, and advised her to get some rest. She encouraged Chenghuan to live for herself. The next morning, Jiming arrived with the sunflowers. Grandma quickly guessed he was there for Chenghuan, but he denied it. She then asked him to help wash some bedsheets. Jiming, who had never done such chores, struggled with it. So Chenghuan began instructing him step by step. He deliberately teases her. They laugh playfully. Since Chenghuan left home, Lu Wanyu has been in constant distress. Meanwhile, upon hearing from Chenghuan that Cheng Zhao had taken up food delivery, Mao Mao forcibly dragged him away to a mall to buy new clothes, encouraging him to lift his spirits and find a suitable law firm to work for again. Unable to refuse her enthusiasm, he tried on a suit, and she was immediately impressed, praising him for looking handsome. Embarrassed, Cheng Zhao blushed deeply. She helped him tie his tie, leaving him so flustered he couldn't look at her directly. Mao Mao happily paid for the suit to give to him. Bao Chao and Mr. Shin's affair became public, and he suffered another stroke, leaving him partially paralyzed. Bao Chao, feeling ashamed, decided to pack her things and leave Shanghai. Chenghuan learned that she was never actually pregnant and had only used it as an excuse to pressure Xin Jishan into divorcing his wife, which had backfired horribly. Chenghuan advised her to take care of herself and even called a taxi for her. Cheng Zhao ran into an old senior from his law firm who updated him on the Xin family's situation. Jia Liang had become despondent. His sister and Luo Mingli were getting divorced, and the company was now fully managed by Chen Deijing. Having also left Fengyuan law firm, the senior invited Cheng Zhao to join his team. Jiming discussed the Xinganli hotel matter with Grandma, but she avoided the topic, leaving him sad. In the apartment corridor, Jiming ran into Chenghuan, who teased him about his monotonous dress style. He was caught off guard, couldn't respond, and He Dong couldn't help but tease him. Cheng Zhao officially joined his senior team and found himself fulfilled and happy daily. The mother personally made Chenghuan's favorite shepherd's purse wontons, which the father brought to her. In return, Chenghuan gave him her monthly salary. As she ate the familiar tasting wontons, she felt a mix of emotions. Mao Mao urged her to reconcile with her mother as soon as possible, but Chenghuan preferred to give them both time to calm down. Song Wyman came to Mao Mao's shop, accusing her of plagiarizing his designs. Furious, Cheng Wan berated him, who responded by suing Mao Mao. Cheng Zhao offered to defend Mao Mao in court, while Cheng Wan decided to help Mao Mao create an independent brand. That night, Cheng Wan stayed up late working on the plan, and Mrs. Chen, unable to sleep, offered her advice. On the weekend, Jiming came early to visit his grandma, only to find Cheng Wan still fast asleep. He mischievously took a picture of her sleeping. Awakened by the noise, Cheng Wan retaliated by threatening to reveal embarrassing photos of Jiming when he was drunk. Mrs. Chen quickly intervened to mediate and asked Jiming to offer Cheng Wan suggestions. He took her out for breakfast and carefully reviewed her design plan. He suggested creating a special gift set designed after Botticelli, which gave Cheng Wan a sudden inspiration. She quickly rushed to discuss the idea with Mao Mao. Meanwhile, Jiming hit a roadblock regarding the Xinganli Hotel when trying to talk with his grandma. Zhang Pei-sheng personally approached Mrs. Chen for a collaboration, but she showed no interest. Pei-sheng mentioned Jiming, and when he came to deliver breakfast to his grandma, he overheard the conversation. Hurriedly, he entered the room and took Pei-sheng away, making grandma realize they were working together to acquire the Xinganli Hotel. He warned Ms. Zhang not to rush things, but she mocked him in return. When Jiming returned to the nursing home, he found his grandma had fainted in the bathroom and rushed her to the hospital. Later, Song Wyman bought Mao Mao's luxury designs but returned them without opening the packaging, leaving a bad review and enraging her. Determined to fight back, she planned to sue him, and Cheng Wan advised her to use public opinion to pressure him. Jiming rushed Grandma Chen to the hospital and immediately called Cheng Wan, who hurried to the hospital. After a full effort by the medical staff, she was finally out of danger. When Cheng Wan went to pick up medication from the pharmacy, Grandma asked Jiming about his plans to partner with Pei-sheng to run the Xinganli Hotel. He admitted that his return to China was primarily for this reason, which left Grandma conflicted, though he did not press further. Cheng Zhao accompanied his parents to visit Mrs. Chen at the hospital. Seeing Cheng Wan limping, the mother was concerned but didn't want to ask directly, so she asked Lai Tian to inquire. Cheng Wan said she had merely twisted her ankle. Mrs. Chen was happy to see Lai Tian, Lu Wanyu, and Cheng Zhao, and she casually asked about renovating their old house. Lai Tian fumbled for an answer, prompting Lu Wanyu to complain bitterly. Cheng Wan suggested renting a place for them, but Mrs. Chen offered her garden villa instead. Cheng Wan parents, unable to refuse her kind offer, reluctantly agreed. Grandma Chen also suggested that Cheng Wan move in with her family, but she declined and instead took her parents and Cheng Zhao to see the villa. Mrs. Chen's house was spacious and large, making Lu Wanyu beam joyfully. Worried about Grandma, Cheng Wan opened the door for them and returned to the hospital. She relieved Jiming, asking him to go home and rest. Grandma Chen explained that the house she had offered was her and Jiming's grandfather's wedding home, filled with unhappy memories, and she had never wanted to live there again. She also encouraged Cheng Wan to reconcile with her mother. To lighten the mood, Cheng Wan showed Mrs. Chen a promotional video she had made for Mao Mao, which led to her expressing interest in learning video production from her niece. Cheng Wan promised to teach her the next day. Grandma Chen carefully reviewed Zhang Pei-sheng's proposal and disagreed with merging Xinganli into Botticelli. She had put much effort into managing it for years and felt close to the staff, almost like family. Jiming promised to retain all the hotel employees, which reassured her slightly. She expressed a desire to leave the hospital wearing a beautiful cheongsam. Later, Cheng Wan and Cheng Zhao accompanied Mao Mao during a live stream, where Mao Mao planned to reveal all the evidence against Song Wyman's plagiarism. However, both advised against it, considering his millions of followers and potential to retaliate in numerous ways. Mao Mao decided to expose him little by little. Jiming wanted to gift Grandma Chen a cheongsam, so Cheng Wan took him to Shanghai's most renowned tailor. They carefully selected fabrics and styles, with Cheng Wan demonstrating an intimate understanding of her preferences, which made Jiming feel inferior by comparison. On the day of Mrs. Chen's discharge, Cheng Wan parents planned to bring her to their new home. Following Cheng Wan's suggestion, her father ordered a bouquet of roses for Mrs. Chen. Holding the bouquet, he arrived to pick her up just as she finished speaking with her lawyer. Though Lai Tian invited her to live with them, Mrs. Chen, who was used to solitude, asked Jiming to take her back to the nursing home and invited them all to dinner at the Xinganli Hotel that evening. She called Cheng Wan, mentioning that she had specially ordered crab roe dumplings that Cheng Wan liked, and Cheng Wan promised to bring a mysterious gift for her. Mrs. Chen was eagerly looking forward to it. She was in high spirits, holding the roses Cheng Wan had given her and dancing joyfully. Suddenly, she collapsed due to a heart attack. Jiming, who had just picked up the custom-made cheongsam for her, rushed to the hospital to bring her home. Chengwan, knowing how much Grandma loved to dance, had bought her a pair of dancing shoes. She hurried to the hospital with great excitement, arriving just after Jiming, but Grandma Chen had already passed away. Both were devastated and overwhelmed with grief. At Mrs. Chen's funeral, friends and family gathered to pay their respects. Jiming and Chengwan placed the cheongsam and the dancing shoes in front of her memorial, expressing their deep sorrow. The lawyer presented a video Mrs. Chen had recorded before her death. In the video, she expressed no regrets, having been blessed with the love of her family and friends. She left heartfelt messages for each of her loved ones. She acknowledged that Lai Tian was not her biological grandson, but she had always treated him like one. She hoped that Mai Lai Tian and Lu Wanyu would continue to love each other. She advised Lu Wanyu to live freely and not worry about her children's marriages. Despite their lack of blood ties, Grandma was closest to Chengwan, promised to bless her with happiness and joy from the heavens, and urged her to be kind to herself. The person she was most worried about was Jiming, urging him to grow closer to the Mai family. Her touching words moved everyone in attendance to tears. After the funeral, Chengwan sat alone, silently shedding tears. Her mother took the initiative to reconcile with her, and when Chengwan noticed that her mother's feet were bleeding from blisters, she offered a tissue to help. This gesture melted the ice between mother and daughter. At the nursing home, she stood in the room where Grandma had once lived, recalling her cheerful demeanor. Now that the room was empty, she felt a mix of emotions. Exhausted, she lay down on Grandma's bed and fell asleep. Meanwhile, Jiming, grieving the loss of his only family, sat in the courtyard, crying uncontrollably. That night, Grandma Chen appeared in Chengwan's dream, speaking to her heart to heart. With tears in her eyes, Chengwan bid farewell to Grandma. Early the next morning, Jiming arrived at the nursing home and shared the story of his childhood with Chengwan. He explained how his father had failed in business, leading creditors to come knocking. His mother had no choice but to take him and wander from place to place. In a critical moment, Grandma Chen came into his life, traveling a long distance to repay his father's debts and provide him with living expenses and school fees. He worked twice as hard to achieve his success today. Chengwan reassured him that Grandma Chen was watching over them from the heavens and blessing them. Chengwan soon immersed herself in her work. Overwhelmed with grief, Jiming stopped eating and drinking, burying himself in work day and night to numb his pain. Worried, Hidong called Chengwan, asking her to console him. She went to see Jiming, cleaned his room, and suggested they visit Mrs. Chen's grave together. At the cemetery, she brought Chen Shuzhen's favorite cookies and encouraged Jiming to rest, reminding him that only then could Mrs. Chen visit him in his dreams. Jiming wanted to tell Chengwan something, but just then, Mrs. Chen's lawyer called and asked Chengwan to meet him. Jiming decided to wait until after she met with the lawyer. Everyone arrived at the law firm on time, where the lawyer read Mrs. Chen's will. In her will, she left all her jewelry to Lu Wanyu, a garden villa to Jiming. She entrusted all her money and the Xinganli Hotel Group entirely to Chengwan. Jiming thought that Grandma Chen would leave the management and ownership rights of Xinganli Hotel to him, her biological grandson. However, to everyone's surprise, Grandma left everything to Chengwan, who had no blood relation to her. He stormed out before the lawyer finished reading the will, so the lawyer asked Chengwan to hand Jiming the letter Grandma Chen had written to him before her death. Chengwan was shocked after hearing the will, as she had no idea that Grandma owned Xinganli Hotel. Upon hearing that Mrs. Chen had handed over the hotel to Chengwan, Pei Sheng immediately called Jiming to remind him not to forget their contract. Frustrated, he went fishing by the river in the rain. Hidong advised him to return to Switzerland, but Jiming recalled Grandma Chen's advice to learn from Chengwan, so he decided to stay and try everything possible to get the hotel back. Hidong suggested that Jiming use the old garden house to trade for Xinganli Hotel, and he saw this as a brilliant idea. The law firm notified Chengwan to come to the hotel for the handover procedures, and Mao Mao was going with her. She often accompanied Mrs. Chen to eat at Xinganli but was surprised to learn that Chen Shuzhen owned the hotel. She began to suspect that Jiming had known that the hotel belonged to Grandma. Butler Kui, who had worked loyally for Mrs. Chen for many years, showed Chengwan around the hotel and handed over the books and keys. Chengwan, feeling overwhelmed by suddenly managing such a large hotel, didn't know how to proceed, but Butler Kui promised to fully support her. Jiming approached Chengwan and bluntly proposed using the garden house to trade for the Xinganli Hotel. She realized his true purpose for returning to China was acquiring the hotel. He approached her and took Grandma to the mountain resort for this reason. Jiming admitted this openly, explaining that he thought Mrs. Chen's management philosophy was outdated and wanted to revamp the hotel. However, Chengwan rejected his offer, unwilling to go against Grandma's wishes, and handed Jiming the letter. In the letter, Grandma acknowledged that Jiming might be upset but urged him to help Chengwan. Chengwan reviewed the hotel's accounts from start to finish and found that its business situation was poor, causing her some concern. Pei Sheng noticed Jiming's indecisiveness and sent a gift to Xinganli Hotel, trying to intimidate Chengwan. Scene transition. Mao Mao attempted to hang a picture on the wall but almost fell due to instability. Fortunately, Cheng Zhao arrived in time to catch her. Song Wyman, who came to see Mao Mao, snapped a picture of the moment and accused her of having an affair with Cheng Zhao. In response, Cheng Zhao defended Mao Mao, declaring he would use legal means to deal with Song Wyman, who left angrily. She didn't want to drag Cheng Zhao into the matter, but he confessed that he had liked her for a long time. Caught off guard by his sudden confession, Mao Mao quickly found an excuse to leave. Chengwan had officially taken over Xinganli Hotel. In high spirits, Wan Yu took her husband to the Xinganli Hotel to inspect the food quality. She was extremely picky and took notes on everything in her notebook, asking Butler Kui to call the head chef to hold him accountable. Butler Kui had no choice but to comply while secretly informing Chengwan. When Lu Wanyu criticized the head chef, he was deeply dissatisfied as he had been doing things the same way for a long time. Chengwan rushed over to mediate and eventually persuaded her mother to leave. Chengwan told Lu Wanyu they needed to leave the garden house as soon as possible since Grandma Chen had left it for Jiming. Chengwan reviewed her mother's notes about the issues at Xinganli Hotel. Most of the problems were indeed real. Miss Chen called Chengwan for help, saying a tour group she was coordinating had some last-minute issues. She arranged for the group to stay at the Xinganli Hotel. She stayed up all night drafting a plan for hosting them and worked until dawn, eventually falling asleep at her desk. Butler Kui brought her breakfast early in the morning, and she handed him the plan, which he immediately began preparing for. During their meal, Jiming admitted that he and Pei Sheng had originally planned to take over Xinganli together. He then confessed his feelings for Chengwan. Shocked by his sudden declaration, she was so flustered that she spilled her coffee without realizing it. He quickly apologized for startling her. Later that night, Chengwan met Mao Mao and told her about Jiming's confession. Mao Mao suspected that he was only after the hotel, but Chengwan believed he was sincere. Realizing that Jiming no longer shared the same goals as her, Pei Sheng was unwilling to give up and began planning to exploit Jiming's weaknesses. Chengwan officially took charge of Xinganli Hotel, rallying all the staff to work hard together. Liao Gang publicly challenged her, mocking her with sarcastic comments. However, Chengwan had thoroughly researched each employee's background beforehand and knew that Liao Gang had started as a doorman and was promoted to concierge team leader due to his outstanding performance. She also recognized that Grandma Chen's old management methods were outdated, and she planned to gradually adjust the salary structure, promising bonuses and profit sharing for excellent performance. She encouraged everyone to treat Xinganli as their home. The staff applauded her enthusiastically, showing their support. Meanwhile, Jiming reported to the headquarters leadership, who Pei Sheng's lies had influenced. They ordered him to acquire Xinganli Hotel within a month. Jiming was shocked to discover Pei Sheng had been scheming behind his back. He Dong pointed out that Jiming might soon have to choose between Chengwan and Xinganli Hotel, but he didn't commit to a decision. He later sent Chengwan a potted plant via courier, wishing her success with the hotel. Lu Wanyu brought Wang Ai, an old neighbor from their lane, to visit the garden villa, asking her to help introduce potential suitors for Chengwan. When she returned home from work, her mother was thrilled, but Wang Ai made an excuse to leave. The mother urged Chengwan to move back home as soon as possible. To her shock, Chengwan suggested they move out and rent a house instead. Her mother, used to the comfort of the garden villa, refused to consider moving to a rental. Jiming then moved into the villa, allowing the Mai family to stay. Chengwan had no choice but to relent, but since there weren't any spare rooms in the house, Jiming offered to stay in the attic. She felt this wasn't appropriate and suggested that he take her room, or else she would move out and rent a place. Her mother adamantly refused. Chengwan, not wanting to argue, left the house. Later, Cheng Zhao came home from work and supported his sister's decision. Lu Wanyu, still refusing to move, finally relented after much consideration, though she made Cheng Zhao promise to keep a close eye on Chengwan's every move. Cheng Zhao packed his belongings and went to stay with his sister, who arranged for him to live in the staff dormitory. Jiming moved into the attic, and when He Dong heard about this, he couldn't resist teasing him. Early the next morning, he prepared a lavish breakfast, impressing both Chengwan parents. Despite Chengwan's leadership, Xinganli Hotel's business revenue remained unsatisfactory. She devised several practical strategies to boost the hotel's performance and asked Shirley for help securing a business order that Botticelli had rejected. She later met with Director Zheng from the Shanghai Daily Chemical Factory to discuss a business reception plan. During the meeting, she accidentally learned that Ms. Zheng was getting married soon. Jiming arrived shortly after to negotiate cooperation with her, prompting Chengwan to leave first. Jiming later met Chengwan to apologize for the situation at Xinganli. She admitted that Xinganli's business reception capabilities were not as strong as Botticelli's, but she considered holding weddings at the hotel. He suggested hosting Shanghai-style weddings, and she agreed it was a good idea. When Jiming returned home from work, he saw Chengwan's father drinking and immediately guessed that Mrs. Wanyu wasn't home, as she strongly disapproved of him drinking. Taking advantage of his inebriation, Mr. Lai Tian offered Jiming some wisdom on handling relationships between husbands and wives. Jiming's business collaboration with director Zheng progressed smoothly. Chengwan, aware that Xinganli Hotel couldn't compete with Botticelli in business events, followed Jiming's suggestion to launch a Shanghai-style wedding project at the hotel. Chengwan asked Mao Mao to design a custom wedding jewelry set for director Zheng. Mao Mao agreed, but with a tight deadline, she worked late into the night, struggling to find inspiration. Cheng Zhao took her out for a break despite the heavy rain. Sharing an umbrella, they wandered through the rain, listening to romantic music. They started playfully splashing rainwater at each other, laughing all the way. When they returned to the shop, he bought 2 cups of ginger tea, and Mao Mao suddenly got her inspiration from the raindrops. She was so excited that she hugged and kissed Cheng Zhao. When director Zheng returned from his trip, she immediately visited Xinganli, where Mai Chengwan personally gave him a tour. Mao Mao delivered her jewelry design on time, and director Zheng was very pleased, entrusting his entire wedding to Chengwan. This marked a significant victory for her, and she was thrilled. Cheng Zhao accompanied Mao Mao to the hotel, dressed up unusually well, which aroused Chengwan's suspicion. She gave a clumsy excuse to cover up his feelings, but Chengwan realized they were in a relationship. Director Zheng invited Jiming to his wedding at Xinganli, and on the day of the wedding, he arrived on time. Chengwan was busy preparing everything and ensuring the event went smoothly. Jiming was impressed by her skills. Chengwan, planning to buy a house for her parents, found several properties for her parent to inspect. Jiming, hearing that the family was moving out of the old villa, felt a sense of loneliness. After the success of the wedding event, Chengwan was optimistic about Xinganli's future. However, Liao Gang questioned her ability and doubted her promises of wage increases and bonuses, accusing her of making empty promises. Chengwan, unwilling to explain further, agreed to let him and others leave if they wanted to resign. She used the money she saved to buy a house to cover the hotel's expenses. Uncle Kui informed Jiming of the hotel's financial situation, prompting him to return the Chengwan family to the villa. He encouraged them to stay in the house without worrying. Cheng Zhao told his sister about this, sensing Jiming's affection for her, but she tried to dismiss the idea. After work, she went to the villa to explain the situation to her family. She hesitated at the door, unsure how to start. Just then, Jiming returned from his night run. She thanked him for his help, and Jiming seized the opportunity to invite her to go fishing with him. The next morning, he came to pick up Chengwan for the fishing trip. Coincidentally, Cheng Zhao and Mr. Lai Tian were also planning to fish, so the 4 of them ended up going together. Trying to keep up appearances, Jiming forced a smile and chatted with Mr. Mai, though his mood was off. Chengwan noticed his displeasure but wasn't sure how to smooth things over, so she stayed quiet throughout the trip. Cheng Zhao, sensing the awkward tension between the two, also remained silent. Chengwan suggested that her father start a fire to grill some food and asked Cheng Zhao to help him, hoping to talk with Jiming. However, when she tried to speak with him, her father interrupted again, leaving Jiming no choice but to focus on fishing. Unfortunately, he struggled, losing fish repeatedly. When Chengwan finally caught a fish, Jiming tried to help pull it in but used too much force, accidentally flinging it into a tree. Thanks to director Zheng's wedding, Xinganli's reputation skyrocketed, attracting many customers wanting to host weddings there. Chengwan was thrilled with the success and visited her parents at home. As she waited for a ride outside the hotel, a drunk man approached her, insisting she drink with him. She politely declined, but the man persisted, harassing her. From a distance, her mother saw this unfold and, without hesitation, rushed to defend her. She even took off her shoe and hit the drunk man, injuring him and scaring him off. The police summoned both parties to the station. Mrs. Liu explained the situation in detail, emphasizing that she acted to protect her daughter. Chengwan hugged her mother tightly, thanking her repeatedly. Jiming arrived to help settle the matter, intimidating the drunk man into dropping any charges. He also had Dong buy a new pair of shoes for Mrs. Liu, and the police only let her off with a warning, as the man wasn't seriously injured. Jiming invited Chengwan outside to enjoy the cool evening air. She thanked him for helping her mother with the police. Taking the opportunity, he expressed his feelings for her, leaving her unsure how to respond. Suddenly, he received a call from the airport about his friend Zhang Ziyu's wallet being stolen. Jiming hurried to the police station to pick up Zhang Ziyu, the daughter of Pei Sheng, who had just started university this year. While he was abroad, he was her legal guardian. Bored of being alone overseas, Zhang Ziyu had impulsively decided to drop out of school. After returning to China, she was extorted while trying to do a good deed and beat the scammer angrily. She continued to berate the scammer in front of the police when Jiming arrived to take her away. Ziyu wanted to go home with Jiming but didn't want to get further involved, so he sent her to her mother. When Pei Sheng found out Ziyu had dropped out of school, she was furious. Ziyu refused to stay abroad any longer, especially now that she was a popular travel streamer with tens of thousands of followers. The mother was speechless with anger. Jiming returned home late and noticed a small nightlight at the stairwell to guide him, guessing it was from Chengwan. Feeling warm appreciation, he brought the nightlight into his room. He wanted to send her a message to thank her but hesitated to disturb her rest. Instead, he posted a picture of the nightlight on his social media, setting it so only Chengwan could see it. To his surprise, she was still awake and quickly replied. The next morning, Mrs. Liu prepared a lavish breakfast, but Chengwan was too busy with work to stay and eat, leaving Mrs. Liu disappointed. To make it up to her, Chengwan enrolled her mother in a senior cooking class and set up a food blogger account for her to share her recipes. After attending a few days of the cooking class, she got bored and signed up for rock climbing lessons. In his spare time, Mr. Mai enjoyed gardening, and Jiming, wanting to learn, received a plant from Chengwan and tips on how to care for it. Ziyu arrived at the hotel looking for Jiming, pestering him persistently. She then insisted he take her out for a meal, and he reluctantly agreed, taking her to a fast food place. During the meal, Ziyu asked him to be her boyfriend, but Jiming reiterated that they were just like siblings. Having anticipated this response, Ziyu refused to give up, convinced he would eventually accept her. Ziyu asked around to find out where Jiming lived. By chance, she ran into Mrs. Liu, who was returning from the market, claiming to be Jiming's girlfriend. Mrs. Liu invites her to the house for a meal. Ziyu devoured the food, and Mrs. Liu called Jiming to inform him of the visitor. He rushed home, repeatedly clarifying that there was nothing between him and Ziyu before forcefully sending her away. Chengwan returned home from work and learned from her mother that Ziyu had visited to see Jiming, claiming to be his girlfriend. He denied this, insisting he only saw Ziyu as a sister. Mrs. Liu encouraged her daughter to be bold in pursuing her happiness, just like Ziyu. That night, Chengwan called Mao Mao to ask for advice, and Mao Mao suggested that Jiming and Ziyu's relationship might not be so simple, leaving her jealous. Unable to find Jiming, Ziyu sought out He Dong, who was on a date with his girlfriend. Spotting Ziyu from a distance, he tried to run away but was caught by her. Chengwan met Fang Da and asked to discuss a potential business collaboration, and the two had an engaging conversation. Ziyu, who happened to be at the hotel, secretly took photos of the meeting and sent them to He Dong, who promptly informed Jiming. He hurried to Xinganli to find Ziyu, urging her not to cause trouble. She suspected he liked Chengwan and declared she would compete with Chengwan fairly. Ignoring Jiming's objections, she went to Chengwan to apply for a job. Chengwan asked her to follow the normal application process, and Zhang left then. During the bus ride, Jiming casually inquired about Chengwan's relationship with Feng Da. She explained that they had only met a few times in their childhood. Seizing the moment, he confessed his feelings and she responded with a kiss, leading to a passionate embrace. Returning home, they quietly returned to their rooms but were too excited to sleep. He messaged her, suggesting they go to work together the next day. Concerned that her mother might notice, he went out to the balcony to call Chengwan out quietly, where they exchanged sweet nothings. They agreed to meet at 5 a.m. the next morning. The next day, Jiming couldn't stop thinking about Chengwan, eager to spend every moment with her. Although she was swamped with work, she agreed to meet him for dinner. Impatient, he brought lunch to her workplace, and seeing her working while eating bread, he fed her himself. Pei Sheng pressed Jiming to take over the Xinganli Hotel, reminding him there were only 10 days left before the deadline. He claimed he would report the situation to headquarters, frustrating her. Meanwhile, Chengwan reached a collaboration agreement with Fang Da. As they celebrated, a flower vendor mistook them for a couple and urged Fang Da to buy flowers for her. Jiming appeared just in time, bought a bouquet, and introduced himself as Chengwan's boyfriend, prompting Fang Da to quickly exit. She teased Jiming for jealousy. They visited Mao Mao's house to announce their relationship. Chengwan revealed she had already noticed the budding romance between her brother and Mao Mao. Yao took the chance to urge Chengwan and Cheng Zhao to return home for dinner. Meanwhile, Ziyu eagerly started working at Xinganli, determined to prove herself to her mother through her actions. Chengwan allowed her to stay. She then motivated her staff to work hard to be recognized as one of the top 10 hotels, but Liao Gang publicly questioned her decisions. Mrs. Liu, who had come to deliver a meal to her daughter, witnessed Liao Gang's confrontation firsthand. She witnessed Liao Gang being rude to Chengwan and hurriedly called her to eat. However, she was in the middle of a meeting and was in no mood, which prompted Liao Gang to make snide comments. Chengwan quickly pulled her mother aside, scolding her for causing a disturbance and urging her to focus on Cheng Zhao instead. Feeling rejected, Mrs. Liu stormed off, and Ziyu, watching from afar, envied the care Chengwan received compared to the neglect she experienced from her mother. Frustrated but unwilling to apologize to her mother, Chengwan called Jiming for help, asking him to check on her mother. Ziyu visited Mrs. Liu and happily tasted her cooking. During the visit, Mrs. Liu vented her frustrations, and Ziyu comforted her. Jiming soon arrived and advised Mrs. Liu to understand Chengwan's perspective, even bringing her small home appliances as gifts. Ziyu, realizing Jiming's feelings for Chengwan, couldn't help but mock him. He clarified that he and Chengwan were dating and warned Ziyu not to interfere, prompting her to admit they were a good match and wish them happiness. After calming Mrs. Liu, Jiming went to pick up Chengwan, who expressed a desire to return home and have a heartfelt conversation with her mother. When they arrived, Mrs. Liu was disappointed to learn Chengwan had already eaten dinner. Mrs. Liu listened as her daughter opened up about the pressure she felt from her mother's involvement in her personal and professional life. Chengwan confessed that she had never forgotten the slap she had received from her mother during her engagement at the Shin family's banquet, which had jolted her awake. Mrs. Liu, deeply moved by Chengwan's candid words, realized her intentions to provide her daughter with the best had instead become a source of pressure. Feeling guilty, she promised to fully support her daughter in her work. The two reconciled, putting their misunderstandings behind them. The next day was Chengzhao's birthday. Mao Mao had prepared a special gift for him before rushing to the kindergarten to pick up Ding Ding. However, she discovered that Song Wyman had already taken Ding Ding and prohibited Mao Mao from picking her up again, accusing her of caring only about her boyfriend. Despite Mao Mao's desperate pleas, Ding Ding refused to leave with her. Meanwhile, Cheng Zhao arrived at a restaurant early, ordering all of Mao Mao's favorite dishes. She showed up, forcing a smile, but her mind was on regaining custody of Ding Ding. Chengwan offered to be her defense lawyer, but Mao Mao, fearing the impact of the custody battle on their relationship and the potential disapproval of Cheng Zhao's parents, advised him to reconsider their situation. Without saying much, Cheng Zhao left. After a while, Chengwan eventually found Cheng Zhao, who opened up about the issues he and Mao Mao were facing. Cheng Zhao planned to fight for Mao Mao's custody of Ding Ding and wanted to hold a parent-child event at the Xinganli Hotel to improve the relationship between Mao Mao and Ding Ding. He also intended to use this opportunity to propose to her. Chengwan, delighted for her brother, agreed to help with the arrangements. Cheng Zhao worked tirelessly, reviewing many custody cases and gathering evidence favorable to Mao Mao and some damaging information about Song Wyman. Handing over his salary card, he promised to work hard to provide a better life for both Mao Mao and Ding Ding. Overwhelmed with emotion, she tearfully hugged him tightly. Mao Mao went to the kindergarten to visit Ding Ding, but her ex-husband instructed the teacher not to let Mao Mao see her daughter. She invited the kindergarten children to the parent-child event at Xinganli, but the teacher hesitated, fearing Song Wyman's disapproval. Cheng Zhao, acting as Mao Mao's lawyer, assured the teacher, who then sought the principal's permission. Living under the same roof, Jiming and Chengwan grew closer as they spent more time together. Ziyu returned home to deliver an invitation to her mother, asking her to attend the parent-child event. Only then did she learn that Ziyu had been working at Xinganli and she angrily lashed out. Ziyu vented her long-standing grievances, comparing her mother to Mrs. Liu, leading to a heated argument that ended poorly. Chengwan entrusted the parent-child event arrangements to Fang Da, who, along with hotel staff, set up the event on the lawn. Pei Sheng learned about Jiming's plans to upgrade the hotel's guest room system and stripped him of his authority. He Dong was anxious, but Jiming anticipated Mrs. Zhang's actions and was curious to see her response at the upcoming headquarters video conference. At the parent-child event, Ziyu arrived early, hoping to take photos of the children, but was disappointed by her mother's absence. Jiming and He Dong attended the video conference, where Pai Sheng reported Jiming's actions to Amber, the head of the company. Jiming had secured hosting rights for the Autumn Shanghai Cooperation Summit, sacrificing a month's performance to upgrade the hotel system, promising 3 years of profit. Amber fully supported Jiming's decision, leaving Pei Sheng with no choice but to restore his authority. After the meeting, Pei Sheng confronted Jiming, who made it clear that he had no intention of returning to headquarters and warned her against having unrealistic expectations about Xinganli or she'd face ruin. Jiming attended the parent-child event at Xinganli, bringing a gift for Chengwan. The event officially began with Cheng Zhao dressed in a mascot costume as the host. He led the children in a game to rescue their mothers, but Ding Ding refused to participate, believing Mao Mao cared only for her boyfriend and not him. Cheng Zhao patiently persuaded Ding Ding, who eventually joined in, happily rescuing his mother. Mao Mao felt deeply grateful to Cheng Zhao, and Chengwan watched from afar, feeling comforted by the scene. Suddenly, a strong wind began blowing, causing the promotional frame of the event to sway. Chengwan rushed to the back to check and discovered that the wooden frame was breaking. She held the frame firmly and called Butler Kui, asking him to get Fang Da. The wind grew stronger, and just when the frame was about to collapse, Jiming arrived in time to help secure it, allowing the event to continue smoothly. He then gifted Chengwan a necklace he had prepared in advance, which she cherished dearly. When Fang Da arrived, he admitted that the steel frames couldn't be delivered on time due to the weather, and Liao Gang had suggested using wooden frames instead. Unexpectedly, the sudden wind caused further complications, and Fang Da repeatedly apologized to Chengwan. Later, Jiming was appointed president of the East China region. During a meeting, Chengwan announced the termination of cooperation with Fang Da and the dismissal of Liao Gang. Unconvinced, he argued back, but Chengwan exposed his misuse of power, replacing steel frames with substandard wooden ones and taking kickbacks. Liao Gang refused to admit his mistakes and remained defiant, leading Chengwan to order him to handle his resignation. In a rage, he splashed a cup of water on Chengwan's face, and Butler Kui quickly dispatched staff to escort him out. Ziyu sent Jiming a video of Liao Gang causing a scene with Chengwan. He rushed to Xinganli Hotel, where Chengwan, exhausted from her recent workload, had fallen ill. He immediately took her to the hospital. She was heartbroken, feeling that she was met with betrayal and disappointment despite her dedication and care for her employees. He comforted her, doing everything he could to cheer her up until she finally managed to smile. Early the following day, Jiming left for a business trip, urging Chengwan to rest and recover. As her health improved, she went shopping at a mall and unexpectedly ran into Duo, a former colleague from the apartment complex who had recently resigned. She invited Duo to work at Xinganli. And although hesitant about her abilities, Duo was grateful and agreed, reassured by Chengwan's confidence in her. Jiming, worried about Chengwan, wrapped up his work early and hurried back to Shanghai. Meanwhile, Yao Renfu, recently released from prison, showed up at the old villa. Mrs. Liu tried to drive him away, but he refused, boldly entering the house and demanding to see Jiming. Chengwan learned that Yao Renfu was Jiming's father and immediately informed him. Furious at the sight of his father, he arrived quickly and forcibly removed him from the villa. He drove his father to the airport, intending to send him to Switzerland. However, Mr. Yao, unwilling to leave, slipped away during a red light and fled, exasperating Jiming. He was a compulsive gambler who neglected Jiming and his mother, ultimately driving her to leave them. Jiming, who had endured a difficult childhood because of his father, felt nothing but anger whenever he thought of him. Later, Mr. Yao caused a commotion at Xinganli, arrogantly claiming the hotel belonged to him. Upon hearing the news, Chengwan rushed over and firmly stated that Grandma Chen had left the hotel to her in her will. He refused to listen and hurled insults at her, demanding she return the hotel to Jiming or he would refuse to leave. Jiming soon arrived and demanded that his father leave Xinganli, but Mr. Yao was adamant. He argued that he only wanted to return Xinganli to his son, but Jiming was unmoved and insisted he go. In defiance, Mr. Yao locked himself in the room and refused to come out. Hearing the argument, Chengwan rushed in to comfort Jiming and called He Dong to come and assist. A dejected Jiming returned home without saying a word and went to his room. Chengwan followed him, and when he locked himself inside, she waited outside his door. On the balcony, Chengwan danced and struck cute poses, doing her best to cheer Jiming up. Her antics finally got through, and he reluctantly let her into his room. She promised they would face everything together and agreed to deal with Mr. Yao as a team. Later, Mr. Liu went to find Chengwan and discovered she wasn't in her room. Realizing she was in Jiming's room, she called her daughter out and warned her not to get involved in his family affairs. After dinner, Chengwan sat alone in the courtyard, lost in thought. Her father noticed she was troubled and approached her for a heart-to-heart talk. She shared everything about Mr. Yao causing trouble at the hotel, openly expressing her concern for Jiming. Seeing that she liked Jiming, Mr. Mai sympathized with his struggles and encouraged her to treat him well, helping to fill the void of lost family affection in his life. He Dong visited Mr. Yao and inadvertently mentioned that Jiming and Chengwan were dating, which made him realize everything. When Mrs. Liu learned that Mr. Yao was stirring up trouble at Xinganli Hotel, she went to confront him. From a distance, she saw him sowing discord, inciting the employees against Chengwan. Unable to tolerate it any longer, Mrs. Liu stormed in to confront Mr. Yao. They argued fiercely. Later, Mrs. Liu sought out Chengwan and warned her to be on guard against his scheming. Meanwhile, Mr. Mai invited Jiming to go fishing by the river and asked about his relationship with Chengwan. Jiming admitted his feelings for her, and Mr. Mai approved of their relationship, making him extremely happy. He immediately shared the good news with Chengwan. Song Wyman hired Luo Mingli as his defense lawyer. Upon learning that Cheng Zhao was representing Mao Mao, Luo Mingli didn't take him seriously. Despite his bravado, Cheng Zhao was concerned about being outmatched and advised Mao Mao to hire a more experienced lawyer. However, she had faith in him. Pei Sheng approached Mr. Yao with a proposal, offering him a large sum to help take back the Xing'anli Hotel. The two quickly allied. With the Shanghai Tourism Festival approaching, Chengwan saw an opportunity to promote Xing'anli Hotel. She and Ziyu devised a practical marketing strategy to leverage the event. After much consideration, Mr. Yao approached Mrs. Liu, hoping to use her as a way in. He met with her to discuss Jiming and Chengwan's marriage, catching her off guard, as she knew nothing about it. She tried calling Chengwan, but since she was in a meeting, she couldn't answer. Frustrated, she went straight to Botticelli to confront Jiming. She questioned his intentions toward her daughter, suspecting ulterior motives. Jiming earnestly explained that his feelings for Chengwan were genuine. Mrs. Liu demanded that he become a live-in son-in-law and undergo her tests, and Jiming readily agreed. Later that night, Jiming secretly climbed a ladder from the balcony to meet Chengwan. Her mother suddenly knocked on the door to bring them some oranges, and Chengwan quickly asked Jiming behind the curtains. However, Mrs. Liu had already seen him and told him he could visit Chengwan's room openly. She also advised him to finish the oranges and return to his room to sleep early. The next day, Mrs. Liu then met with Mr. Yao, warning him to behave himself and not interfere with Jiming's life. He expressed his desire to stay in Shanghai and attend Jiming's wedding, but she firmly refused, planning to ask Jiming to let him stay for a few more days. Mr. Yao then went to Chengwan, trying to win her over and asking her to buy him new clothes for the wedding. She agreed to take him shopping. To ease the tension between Mr. Yao and Jiming, Chengwan arranged a tasting salon for Mr. Yao. Jiming, aware of his father's deceitful nature, warned Chengwan to be careful. During dinner, Mr. Yao brought a bottle of motai, intending to share it with Jiming. However, Yao Jiming immediately recognized it as fake and brought out his bottle of genuine liquor. Overwhelmed with guilt, Mr. Yao shed tears of regret. Unable to handle his alcohol, he quickly got drunk, and Jiming used a hotel luggage cart to push him back to his room, which Chengwan captured on camera. As Jiming reminisced about his childhood memories in the house, Chengwan urged him to let go of his resentment and forgive his father. He promised to try. Meanwhile, Ziyu worked overtime, preparing for the delegation's reception at the Shanghai Tourism Festival. She had even arranged for a famous celebrity to appear and promptly reported her progress to Chengwan. Pei Sheng happened to see her plan and read through it carefully. Seizing the opportunity, she instructed Secretary Song to contact Mr. Yao, asking him to find a way to get a reception pass for Xing'anli Hotel. He delivered snacks to the staff and, taking advantage of a moment of distraction, stole a reception pass. He then ran into Chengwan, who invited him to her home and treated him like family, making him feel warm. He began to regret his partnership with Pei Sheng. Later, Jiming decided to cook a meal himself and went with Chengwan parents to the market. Mrs. Liu shared her tips on picking the best ingredients and suggested he invite his father to dinner at their home. Jiming carefully learned how to make braised crucian carp with tofu from Mrs. Liu, intending to prepare the dish for Chengwan. He worked meticulously, and Chengwan cheered him on from the sidelines. Elsewhere, Mr. Yao, following Secretary Zhou's instructions, stole a reception pass from the Xing'anli Hotel. He was conflicted because Chengwan had been very kind to him and tried to help reconcile him with Jiming. He felt guilty but had already accepted Pei Sheng's bribe. He handed the pass to Secretary Zhou but deliberately changed the lanyard to a blue one. When he asked again why Zhou needed the pass, he lied, saying that his niece wanted to meet a celebrity attending the event. Mr. Yao suspected Pei Sheng was behind the scheme, secretly recorded their conversation, and returned the bribe from Secretary Zhou. Zhou then threatened and intimidated him, causing Mr. Yao to remain silent. As Mr. Yao grew increasingly uneasy, he considered texting Jiming about Secretary Zhou's request. But the hotel room suddenly experienced a power outage. He suspected that Pei Sheng had orchestrated this and rushed downstairs to investigate. The staff was in chaos. Chengwan called Ziyu, who was en route to the hotel with the delegation. Chengwan instructed her to delay the group while Steward Kui searched for technicians to repair the power outage. Mr. Yao confessed that the outage was a deliberate act of sabotage. Cheng Wan immediately ordered an investigation into anyone with a blue lanyard reception pass at Xinganli Hotel. Mr. Yao recorded his conversation with Secretary Zhou, revealing that Pei Sheng was behind the scheme. Due to the severity of the damage, it would take at least an hour to restore the power. While Ziyu could only delay the delegation for 15 minutes at the Bund, the power was finally restored, and Steward Kui reported the news to Cheng Wan, who asked Dodo to assist the guests with check-in. She praised Mr. Yao for his efforts. Upon hearing of the incident, Jiming confronted his father, angrily shouting at him. Cheng Wan intervened, speaking up for him, and dragged Jiming to confront Pei Sheng. At Pei Sheng's office, Cheng Wan directly exposed her for orchestrating the previous food poisoning incident and using Mr. Yao to obtain the hotel reception pass and sabotage the power lines. Jiming arrived with the police, who had gathered solid evidence against Pei Sheng. She eventually had no choice but to surrender. Jiming, under orders from his superiors, took over Pei Sheng's responsibilities. Cheng Wan persuaded Jiming to apologize to his father, explaining that it was thanks to his honesty that the truth came to light. They went to find Mr. Yao, but his room was empty. Jiming called him multiple times, but he did not answer. It was only when Cheng Wan called that Mr. Yao finally picked up, and upon learning that the situation had been resolved, he breathed a sigh of relief. Jiming offered to pick him up, but Mr. Yao insisted on returning to the hotel alone. While crossing the street, he was hit by a speeding car. Despite the medical team's best efforts, they could not save him. Mr. Yao had already passed away. Jiming was overwhelmed with grief. He immediately rushed to his father's former residence while Cheng Wan stayed behind to handle the formalities. She came to the hotel to find Jiming, but he had locked himself in the room. Quietly weeping, she patiently waited in the hallway. Early the following day, her parents arrived at the hotel and found Cheng Wan dozing in the hallway. Using a key, Cheng Wan unlocked the door, finding Jiming sitting silently against the bed. Seeing how he had become so haggard, Cheng Wan felt heartbroken. That day was Jiming's birthday, so Mrs. Liu made him a bowl of steaming noodles, carving "Happy Birthday" out of carrots. Though Jiming felt warmth from their care, he still couldn't escape his grief. After eating a few bites of noodles and feeling the family's comfort, tears began to fall uncontrollably. Gradually, he felt a bit of relief. Sometime later, Xinganli Hotel was recognized as one of the top 10 unique hotels, which made Cheng Wan happy. Cheng Wan gave out bonuses to the staff and granted them 5 days of vacation. Ziyu informed Cheng Wan that she would be leaving to continue her studies in Switzerland, but Cheng Wan welcomed her to work at Xinganli after graduation. Jiming went to the market and bought a lot of ingredients, wanting to cook a thank you meal for the Mai family. But when he didn't know where to start, he called He Dong to hire a cooking chef at home. During the meal, he expressed his gratitude for the Mai family's support. Cheng Wan publicly announced the excellent news about Xinganli being named one of the top 10 unique hotels. Jiming shared that he had been promoted to the position of East China Regional President. The whole family was overjoyed for both of them. Cheng Wan booked a tour for her parents, suggesting they go on a short trip together. Meanwhile, Mao Mao received a phone call from Ding Ding, who tearfully told her that the father had hit him. Cheng Zhao and Cheng Wan were with her, so they all went to confront Song Wyman. He had already sent Ding Ding to his grandmother's house and shouted at Ma Mao. Since the trial had not yet reached a verdict, she had no choice but to endure for the time being, leaving with Cheng Wan and Cheng Zhao. Meanwhile, Cheng Wan had invited a lawyer from Xinganli Hotel to help Cheng Zhao strategize for the custody battle. Cheng Wan's parents returned home, surprised when they saw Cheng Zhao and Mao Mao standing together and holding hands. He admitted that he and Mao Mao were in a relationship. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Liu didn't oppose them. Instead, she encouraged Cheng Zhao to support Mao Mao fully in her fight to win custody of Ding Ding. Mrs. Liu locked herself in her room. She later looked through old photo albums, recalling many fond memories of Cheng Wan and Cheng Zhao from their childhood, feeling a mix of emotions. The next morning, she made a lavish breakfast and left a note before heading out. Cheng Wan, thinking she was no longer upset, planned for the whole family to have dinner together that night. That day, the custody trial for Ding Ding took place. With convincing evidence and reasoning, Cheng Zhao won custody. Together with Ma Mao, they went to pick Ding Ding up, then happily returned home for the family dinner. After work, Cheng Wan called Jiming, who picked her and Mr. Mai up to head home. When they all arrived, including Cheng Zhao, Ma Mao, and Ding Ding, they found the table full of food, but Mrs. Liu was nowhere to be seen. Unable to reach her by phone or text, Cheng Wan became worried. Realizing something was wrong, they split up to search for her. Jiming had He Dong contact the police. He then noticed that Mrs. Liu had left the house keys behind but took the family photo with her, suspecting she had run away. A delivery man soon arrived with a letter from Mrs. Liu. In it, she revealed that she was ill and wanted some time alone to clear her mind. Mr. Mai felt deeply guilty, realizing he had been unaware of her serious health condition. Jiming contacted the police, who discovered Mrs. Liu had bought a ticket to her hometown in Anhui. As expected, Mrs. Liu had taken a taxi to Shang Village after getting off the train. She arrived late at the old house, utterly exhausted. The house had once belonged to her parents and held many precious memories. While stopping at a rest area, Chengwan reflected on all of her mother's strange behavior in recent days, regretting that she hadn't noticed her mother's illness sooner. They finally arrived at Shang Village at dawn, but the door was locked from the inside. Jiming climbed over the wall and opened the door. Chengwan knocked on her mother's door, scolding her for leaving without a word and urging her to return home for proper treatment. But Mrs. Liu, wanting to be alone, refused. Frustrated, Chengwan sat stubbornly by the gate, with Jiming quietly staying by her side. Meanwhile, Cheng Zhao and Mr. Mai visited the hospital to check Mrs. Liu's medical results. The doctor suspected that the shadow on her lung was a tumor and strongly recommended that Mrs. Liu return for further tests as soon as possible. Jiming went to a nearby supermarket to buy supplies and called Mr. Mai, telling him that Mrs. Liu's condition seemed off and urging him to come to the old house as soon as possible. That night, everyone rushed to the old house. Uncharacteristically, Mr. Mai lost his temper and angrily insisted that Mrs. Liu return for treatment or he would divorce her. To his shock, she agreed to the divorce. Determined to stay, realizing his outburst hadn't had the intended effect, he calmed down and decided to have a heart-to-heart conversation with her. During their talk, she said she believed her time was running out and didn't want to burden him. She urged him to find someone else to take care of him. However, Mr. Mai declared that he would resign from his job to stay with her. Touched, Mrs. Liu broke down in tears. After much persuasion, Mr. Mai managed to calm her down. The next day, Chengwan prepared breakfast early and Mr. Mai woke Mrs. Liu. After breakfast, they walked for a field stroll. Along the way, they bumped into Aunt Wang, an old childhood friend of Mrs. Liu. Her ducks had escaped and Jiming and Chengwan quickly helped her catch them. Mrs. Liu couldn't help but laugh at the sight and later pulled Chengwan and Jiming aside for a group photo. Then, Mrs. Liu wandered around the village and found herself at the old stage where she used to perform, recalling memories of her youth. She was overcome with emotion and began to cry. Chengwan, seeing this, rushed over to comfort her. After returning from the stage, Mrs. Liu went straight to her room, worrying Mr. Mai, who urged Chengwan to persuade her to return to Shanghai for treatment. Chengwan wanted her mother to regain her confidence by reconnecting with her past, hoping to inspire her to seek treatment. That night, Mr. Mai took his wife to the old stage to watch an opera. Together with Jiming, they put on a shadow puppet show that depicted the story of Mrs. Liu's early life. They even invited the musicians who used to accompany her performances. Cheng Zhao brought out opera costumes for her, and with encouragement from her family and Master Feng's daughter, Mrs. Liu returned to the stage. She performed her favorite Wangmei opera, The Female Prince Consort, with great emotion and skill. The audience, including her family, applauded her performance, and Mrs. Liu felt a renewed sense of joy and fulfillment. After the performance, Mr. Mai and the others set off fireworks to celebrate Mrs. Liu's return to the stage. Touched, she made a heartfelt wish for the good health of her family. Cheng Zhao suggested they regularly return to the old house, while Jiming proposed opening a hotel there. Chengwan eagerly volunteered to manage it, and Jiming happily agreed. Mrs. Liu was ready to return to Shanghai for surgery. She and Chengwan shared a bed that night and mother and daughter spent the night talking intimately. The day came for Mrs. Liu to have surgery. The surgery went well and the tumor was successfully removed. As the Mid-Autumn Festival approached, the resort hotel jointly developed by Xinanli Garden Hotel and Ueda International Hotel officially opened. Jiming gave a speech, expressing hope that the hotel would bring economic opportunities to Shang Village, while Chengwan delivered a heartfelt address. That evening, Mrs. Liu prepared a grand feast, and the whole family gathered around the table for a festive reunion meal. Mr. Mai warmly welcomed Mao Mao and Ding Ding into the family, while Mrs. Liu pressed Chengwan and Jiming to get married soon. The courtyard was filled with laughter and joy as the family celebrated together. The movie ends here. Please subscribe to my channel to update more great movie summaries.